The twin suns of Xylos Prime hammered down upon the crimson sands, baking the desolate landscape into an oven of rock and regret. Jagged spires of sandstone clawed at the sky, monuments to a forgotten civilization swallowed by the merciless desert winds. Silence reigned, broken only by the sibilant whisper of sand grains skittering across the dunes, a constant reminder of the planet's slow but inexorable decay. Inside Outpost Sigma 7, Kale coughed, the sound echoing in the cramped, recycled air. The control room, more of a reinforced shipping container than a citadel, hummed with the death throes of antiquated technology. Flickering fluorescent tubes cast long, dancing shadows, turning the already claustrophobic space into a theater of paranoia. Dust, the ever-present plague of Xylos Prime, coated every surface, the cracked console panels, the tangled nest of wires snaking across the floor, the half-eaten synth ration clinging stubbornly to the edge of his chipped mug. Kale swirled the lukewarm synth-CAF, the cheap stimulant a feeble shield against the encroaching ennui. 8 years he'd been stationed here, a penance for a youthful indiscretion he preferred not to recall. 8 years of dust, boredom, and the gnawing suspicion that the universe had simply forgotten him. He glanced at the diagnostics panel, its flickering lights taunting him with their cryptic warnings. Another system failure. Another piece of ancient tech stubbornly refusing to cooperate. He'd learned to speak its language, the language of sputtering power relays and corroded circuits, but sometimes he wondered if the machines were mocking him. "Problem, Jax?" A raspy voice crackled over the calm, cutting through the silence. It was Rourke, the station's grizzled commander, a man whose veins seemed to run with synth whiskey and battlefield cynicism. "Just another Tuesday, Commander," Kale replied, forcing a lightness into his voice. "The atmospherics are acting up again. I think the filter is trying to recycle Martian dust. Get it fixed. And check those perimeter sensors while you're at it. I've got a bad feeling brewing." Rourke grunted. The calm clicked off, leaving Kale to his thoughts. Rourke's bad feelings usually meant trouble. Trouble meant paperwork. And Kale loathed paperwork more than the sand itself. He sighed, taking another swig of the synthetic concoction. His gaze drifted to the tiny, cracked viewport, offering a breathtaking but utterly lifeless panorama of the Xylosian desert. Here, on the edge of nowhere, peace and quiet only served to amplify the whispers in his mind, the anxieties that threatened to consume him. Then, a blip on the long-range scanner, faint, but undeniable. Something was approaching. Something that wasn't supposed to be there. His hand hovered over the alarm. Protocol demanded he follow standard procedure. Contact the approaching vessel. Identify. Ascertain their intentions. But a tremor of unease ran down his spine. This felt different. Too purposeful. "Spanner," he muttered. "Give me a diagnostic sweep." From inside a nearby storage crate, a one-eyed robotic feline emerged, its metallic fur dull with dust. Spanner, a cobbled-together collection of salvaged parts and salvaged emotions, was his only companion, a testament to Kale's engineering ingenuity and lonely existence. The bot emitted a series of rapid beeps and whirs, its single optic eye scanning the console. "No transponder code," Kale murmured, his unease growing. "No response to automated pings. Coming in slow, real slow." He leaned forward, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "Unscheduled visitors," he muttered. "Fantastic." The data on the screen was scant, but a message appeared: "Contact. Approaching." Outside, the crimson sands bled into the twilight sky, and the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting long, skeletal shadows across the landscape. The problem with peace and quiet, Kale reflected, was that it gave your paranoia entirely too much room to stretch its legs. The landing was surprisingly silent. The vessel, a sleek, obsidian-black craft, touched down on the designated pad with barely a whisper of compressed gas. It bore no markings, no insignia, nothing to indicate its origin or purpose. Suspicious, to say the least. Its appearance was of a shark, sleek and smooth, but deadly and quick. Kale watched from the viewport, his hand resting on his sidearm. Protocol or not, he wasn't about to be caught unawares. As he watched, The landing ramp hissed, then slowly lowered, revealing a figure silhouetted against the dim interior of the ship. Not a soldier. Not a diplomat. Not a pirate. Nothing he could have imagined. The figure stepped out into the harsh glare of Sigma-7's perimeter lights, and Kale's breath hitched in his throat. She didn't stride out like a warrior, or negotiate a careful descent. Instead, she walked like a predator trying to look like something other than a predator. She came across like an apex predator who could outlast a star. His hand tightened around his sidearm as she approached. She moved with purpose towards the outpost door. She stood bathed in light. She was tall, lithe, and breathtakingly alien. Her skin was a vibrant crimson, a stark contrast to her long, flowing silver hair that cascaded down her back. Her features were delicate yet powerful, her jawline sharp, her cheekbones prominent. But it was her eyes that truly captivated and unnerved him. Eyes of molten gold, piercing and intelligent, that seemed to see straight through him. She wears a battle-worn bioarmor made up of metal with gems in a few places. Scars run along her arms and neck. "You lost?" Kale asked as he approached her, breaking the silence, but she didn't answer. Her features were sharp and calculated. Like a computer program designed to kill. The only feminine figure on her was her hair. "Unidentified vessel." The words fell out to the floor. "State your business or stand down." Her voice was a low, melodic thrum, accented but with its origination impossible to pinpoint. "I need a reactor stabilizer coil." "This must be a trick," Kale thought, but then the figure said, "You once saved my mother." The tone had changed from the cold hunter to something softer, almost like a child. Kale blinked, confused. "Excuse me?" The situation was spiraling, and the universe, as usual, wasn't offering any explanations. The cracked ceramic of the mug warmed his calloused hand, a small comfort in the sterile chill of Sigma-7. Since CAF, as the requisition forms so blandly described it, was more of a viscous, brown-tinged syrup designed to keep the less fortunate souls of the outer rim functional. But Jax had learned to appreciate its bitter bite, the fleeting illusion of alertness it provided. Close up you could notice that there were cracks running along his skin, etched into the skin like the sand itself. He drained the dregs, the synthetic tang lingering on his tongue. His face, weathered by years of harsh Xylosian winds and close calls, spoke volumes. Deep lines radiated from the corners of his eyes, a roadmap of sleepless nights and suppressed anxieties. There was a weariness etched into every line, a resignation born of loneliness, and the slow grind of survival. But amidst the exhaustion, a spark of defiance flickered. It was a stubborn ember, refusing to be extinguished by the endless expanse of the desert. He stared as the panel lights ticked along. There was nothing out here to scan for but dust and sand. He hated this place. He had asked for it. This position, this punishment. The swivel chair beneath him groaned in protest as he shifted his weight. It was salvaged from a defunct transport ship, its once plush cushioning ripped and faded, the metal frame twisted into an unnerving parody of comfort. The chair was in disrepair, but in comparison to the rest of the items he had here, it was in mint condition. In slow motion, like a silent film reel, Jax's gaze lingered on the control console. Each crack and scorch mark told a story, a rogue power surge, a micrometeoroid impact, a desperate attempt to reroute power during a sandstorm. The console wasn't just a machine, it was a chronicle of his isolation, a testament to his resilience in the face of entropy. A new light appeared to tick on. Just one. No big deal. He found himself focusing on it. The other tech had said that they never seen one like it. He had just brushed that off, as if it was normal to make small talk with the guy he hardly knew. The single eye burned deeper than the rest, showing that it was still on the fritz. His face tightened at it. He stood and grabbed his screwdriver. "No rest without one like you," he mumbled before making his way. Suddenly, the crate nearest to the console rattled, the movement almost masked by the hum and grinding of the outpost. A scrappy head rose to peek. One eye, yellow and vibrant, darted left then right. A soft beep. From inside, the one-eyed robotic feline known as Spanner, emitted a series of knowing beeps and whirs from inside a storage crate. "And what do you know?" Jax said, turning around to see the little bot. It was not his real name. He'd found the robotic feline years ago, a half-melted chunk of scrap. After months of work, Jax had managed to reassemble it, giving it a personality based on an old defense bot's emotional core. That was just how life goes these days. It's not as if he could have said no, "I'm no a vet," to a vet that needed help getting home. "Spanner, status report," Jax said in the direction of the crate. "No new messages," Spanner replied. "But I do smell a hint of lithium in the north sector. It is very concerning." "Lithium? That would be pirates," Jax said out loud as he went to the crate to pick up his robotic friend. "Thanks, buddy." Spanner jumped onto Jax's head before finding his way around his back before nesting. The robotic cat began to purr, a low electronic rumble that echoed the hum of the outpost, always an omen of impending chaos. Jax sighed, his gaze hardening with resolve. He grabbed his pulse rifle, the worn metal feeling strangely comforting in his grip. Solitude had its drawbacks, but it had also taught him self-reliance. He was ready to face whatever was coming, even if it was a fleet of pirate ships drawn by the scent of malfunctioning power cells and desperation. Jax was interrupted by the computer. It began to shriek about an unknown ship. Here it was. Something new. Something to break up the monotony of the days. He made his way back to the console. Now this was something he could deal with. If he hated boredom and chaos, he was going to have to pick just one. He braced himself for what was to come. As it all comes in the sands. Here comes the Crimson. "Welcome to Outpost Sigma 7. The words echoed in Jax's head, a phantom from the long-dead orientation briefing. More like, "Welcome to your gilded cage on a godforsaken rock," he thought, the cynicism rising like bile. Sigma 7 wasn't much to look at, not from the outside, anyway. Its steel plating, originally intended to deflect micrometeoroids, was now more effective at reflecting the crushing weight of its loneliness back at its inhabitants. The outpost clung precariously to the edge of known space, a forgotten way station on a trade route that had long since dried up, now more of a digital breadcrumb for anyone determined enough to find it, and Jax. To the corporation in charge of what passed for law out here, Outpost Sigma 7 was nothing more than a liability. Too far to reach with resources. Best just to forget this place and its people. All of them who seemed to be forgotten on purpose. Sigma 7 had a purpose once. It had been a staging point for exploration missions, a beacon of hope in the early days of the Valerian expansion. Now, it was a junkyard for obsolete technology and broken dreams, a graveyard of abandoned projects and forgotten ambitions. The corporation that built Sigma 7 had long ago decided it was too expensive to even maintain it. And yet, within its rusting walls, a fragile ecosystem of survival existed. A handful of technicians, scavengers, and outcasts clung to life, eking out a meager existence by repairing outdated tech and trading scraps with passing freighters. Jax was one of them, perhaps the most skilled, but also the most isolated. Jax was resourceful, a master of improvisation, able to coax life back into machines that would have been considered scrap metal by any sane engineer. He was also cynical, hardened by years of watching hopes wither and die in the unforgiving environment of the Outer Rim. Beneath that hard exterior, however, a flicker of idealism remained, a stubborn refusal to succumb completely to despair. It was this spark, however dim, that had prompted him to take the assignment to Sigma 7. A chance to be the master of his own destiny, to live outside the corporation's web of control. A way to get away from what he had done. He was also a man battling mounting paranoia. Years of isolation had taken their toll. Every ping on the radar, every unexplained power surge, every shift in the wind seemed to carry a hidden threat, a sign of some unseen force conspiring against him. He often found himself staring into the void, imagining ships lurking just beyond sensor range, their holds filled with pirates, bounty hunters, or worse. But this manufactured peace was about to be shattered by the arrival of a stranger. The familiar refrain echoed in Jax's mind, a line from a long-forgotten drama. It felt strangely appropriate now, like the universe was mocking him with its dramatic irony. A sleek, black craft, defying all known classifications, had appeared on his radar, its intentions shrouded in silence. And from its depths had emerged Xylo, a vision in crimson and silver, an impossible beauty amidst the dust and decay. She was a Kryllian exile, a race shrouded in mystery and whispered legends. Some said they were descendants of ancient starfarers, masters of forgotten technologies. Others claimed they were ruthless conquerors, driven by a thirst for power that knew no bounds. What he didn't know, however, was that she needed something. A reactor part of what she said it was. Something seemed suspicious to him. And, Jax grumbled, you remind me too much of her. Here she was, standing before him, and a destiny woven in the threads of his forgotten past. A past he had tried desperately to bury, a past that had now come back to haunt him in the most unexpected and alluring form. He was here for a reason. He was always here for a reason. One would think that there was one point in the universe laughing at what was happening to him. Can Jax trust Xylo? He whispered to himself, his gaze fixed on the crimson alien. And what will happen when buried a past is revealed? A past he thought he had buried long, long ago. For a moment, he thought he was seeing his old comrade again. Then he knew he was really in hell. The questions hung in the air like the fine dust of Xylos Prime, thick, unsettling, and impossible to ignore. A blip on the long-range scanner, subtle yet insistent, yanked Jax back from the abyss of his thoughts. It was an anomaly, a spark of order amidst the chaos of static that perpetually cluttered his outdated sensors. He leaned in, the metallic groan of the chair a familiar counterpoint to the alien silence. He tapped a sequence on the console, the cracked keys cold beneath his fingertips. He knew that whatever she was, it was not going to be good. Spanner analysis, he commanded, his voice clipped. The robotic feline word, its singular eye focusing on the screen. No known signature, Jax. Energy fluctuations, inconsistent. Could be anything. It trailed off, its metallic tone tinged with a hint of what Jax could only interpret as anxiety. The data was a mess, fragmented and inconclusive. But one thing was clear, something had dropped out of faster-than-light travel just inside the perimeter, far too slow for anything he'd ever seen. Far too slow and in their borders. A knot tightened in Jax's gut. Great. Just what I needed, he muttered, more to himself than to Spanner. Unscheduled visitors. Outside the narrow viewport, the Xylosian twilight painted the landscape in hues of blood orange and bruised purple. A pinprick of light, impossibly bright against the fading sky, marked the approaching vessel. It descended with an eerie grace, defying the harsh, angular lines of Sigma 7's dilapidated landing pad. The landing itself was unnerving. No roaring engines, no bone-jarring impact, just a soft hiss of compressed gas and the subtle settling of weight. The sleek, unmarked spacecraft seemed to absorb all sound, intensifying the already oppressive silence. It felt wrong. Jax grabbed his pulse rifle, the cold metal a familiar comfort against his sweating palm. He waited, his senses heightened, his body coiled like a spring. His heart thrummed against his ribs. He set the rifle to stun. The landing ramp hissed open, a sliver of darkness expanding into a yawning maw. Then, a figure emerged, silhouetted against the dim interior of the ship. Not a soldier striding confidently forward. Not a diplomat gesturing amicably. Not even the swaggering silhouette of a pirate. Instead, she moved with a measured, deliberate grace, a dancer with a predator's balance. It was more like a predator trying not to look like one, which only made Jax feel much more ill at ease. Its shape took form as Xylo walked into the sun, revealing a form he wasn't expecting. She was tall, lithe, and breathtakingly alien, something more than any man could image. Her skin was a vibrant crimson, a stark contrast to her long, flowing silver hair that cascaded down her back. Her features were delicate yet powerful, her jawline sharp, her cheekbones prominent. But it was her eyes that truly captivated and unnerved him. Eyes of molten gold, piercing and intelligent, that seemed to see straight through him. Jax's jaw tightened. He raised his weapon, but hesitated. The Kryllian's posture was relaxed, almost casual, but the tension radiating from her was palpable, a silent energy that crackled in the air. "Lost, sweetheart?" Jax asked, his voice laced with a sardonic edge he hoped masked his unease. He was trying to mask it too. She could feel his pulse and sense his emotions. "Not a fighter. And not a diplomat, and not an easy target. She is one thing I can see. An apex predator." He took a breath, as he was not sure how to process her just coming here. Her golden eyes narrowed slightly, studying him with an unsettling intensity. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, broken only by the distant hum of Sigma-7's life support systems. All too easy. A long silence passed. Kale knew things weren't going to be better from here. It was easy to tell. Xylo advanced, the distance between them shrinking, each step a hammer blow against the strained silence. Jax gripped his pulse rifle, his thumb hovering over the safety. There was something in her eyes now, beyond the cold professionalism, a flicker of curiosity. Perhaps even a sliver of remorse? She stopped just feet away, close enough for him to catch a faint scent of ozone and something wilder, something distinctly alien. Her golden eyes, the color of molten starlight, searched his face, probing for, what? Recognition? Regret? "I'm here to assassinate you, Jax," she said, her voice a low, melodic thrum that seemed to vibrate through his very bones. The words hung in the recycled air, a stark and brutal declaration. There was no anger, no malice, just a cold, clinical statement of fact. Jax had dealt with smugglers, pirates, and corporate assassins before, but there was a chilling, alien efficiency in her delivery that sent a shiver down his spine. He hadn't felt this way since, in a long, long time. She brought him back to war. A time he hated and cherished. It's the only time he felt really alive. "Well, shit," Jax muttered, the sardonic tone returning with a vengeance. He lifted the pulse rifle, the barrel steady despite the turmoil brewing within him. "That's a hell of a way to start a conversation. Guess the welcome wagon got lost in transit. I was sent here to kill you." She stared at him before leaning in as if the universe was watching. "But I will do nothing for you. You are not the target. You are a dead man walking from now on." Xylo responded to Jax, almost as she was sad. Jax paused. "That's not possible. If that was true, why are you here?" Xylo had paused for a moment, staring at the ground before returning to give Jax a cold gaze. "There is something, Jax. Something from a time ago." Her shoulders softened. "A time before my mother was taken. You saved her, Jax. You saved my mother, Velan warrior Aliana, from certain death. I've made a lot of enemies and saved more. Remind me. Why so long ago would I save her mother and not remember?" Jax asked to the wind, confused by all this. He felt a pain, then memories started to flood. Old ones he locked away. The viewport shimmered, the harsh Xylosian light replaced by the chaos of a raging firefight. He was younger, leaner, driven by a conviction he no longer possessed. He remembered the acrid smell of plasma fire, the deafening roar of explosions, the desperate cries of wounded soldiers. And then, he saw her, Aliana. She had been trapped, pinned down by enemy fire, her energy shield flickering dangerously. She was a Kryllian, even more beautiful and lethal than her daughter, her face a mask of stoic defiance. Despite orders to retreat, despite the overwhelming odds, Jax had broken formation, charging into the fray, drawing enemy fire to himself, creating a window for Aliana to escape. He remembered the searing pain as a plasma bolt grazed his side, the adrenaline coursing through his veins, the unwavering determination to save a life, even if it cost him his own. I remember now," Jax stammered, the memories flooding back with painful clarity. Aliana had been a leader among the Velan. They had been a valuable ally, though they went to war and ruined each other. The code name was Nightingale. The memory faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Jax gasping for breath. The years had dulled the details, but the underlying emotion remained, a potent mix of adrenaline, fear, and a fierce commitment to doing what was right, regardless of the consequences. Xylo looked down at Jax, a hint of sorrow in her golden eyes. Aliana has told her of him. He was a different man than what she was expecting. That's enough to convince the gods. Why did you do it? We were losing, plain and simple. You all were good allies, Jax said, his voice rough with emotion. I couldn't just let her die. So that makes us even then? She asked. It was such a statement coming from someone with so much on their back. Jax could see it weighed on her. No, Jax said grimly. This makes things complicated. The air crackled with unspoken tensions. What happened next was going to test every limit that he could hold. Now it was not just survive, but to keep her alive. He hated not knowing. Now it was life or death. He just could have picked up another shipment of supplies and stayed here forever. But now there was Xylo. He could see why his life was a joke. A faint beat came up from behind Jax. He heard Spanner's engine whirring into a power state. At least his cat could sense something was wrong, or maybe he did too. His hand reached to his blaster when a missile shrieked through the air, causing them to be thrown back with the explosion. The weight of the outposts crashed down on him. Then just black. The dust settled, revealing a control room in ruins. Wires sparked, debris littered the floor, and the air hung thick with the acrid scent of burnt circuitry. Jax coughed, pushing himself up from beneath a fallen console panel. His head swam, and a searing pain shot through his ribs. Spanner popped up, his singular eye flickering, chirping with worry. Status, buddy? Jax croaked, spitting out a mouthful of dust. Life signs nominal. Multiple system failures. Recommend immediate evasive action. Spanner replied, his robotic voice laced with urgency. That obvious, huh? Jax muttered, glancing around at the devastation. He saw Xylo in the corner, her body smoking and damaged. He didn't know if he could trust her, but she was the only thing that could help right now. He focused his eyes on Xylo. The alien warrior was kneeling amidst the wreckage, seemingly unharmed despite the chaos around them. Her golden eyes were fixed on him, their intensity sending a shiver down his spine. But was it from wariness or fear? Who could know? I can't carry out this mission, Xylo said, her voice barely a whisper. I cannot after what you did, and now I am going to risk our lives together. There was a new layer of sadness in her tone. The heat of the room was intense, but not nearly as much as the pain and hatred was in her body, which was quickly fading. He just stared at her. All her anger. All her hatred. And what is it now, huh? She tried to stand but seemed to be having a hard time. Jax studied her face. The stoic mask had cracked, revealing a glimpse of something softer, something vulnerable. But the Velan military made sure to take that out of their kids. She's trying to hide it, thought Jax. He pushed himself up from the console to offer her a hand. Let me help you. Don't want you exploding without me knowing why. She looked up and shook her head before taking his hand. Thanks, idiot. You don't even know who I am. And yet you did this for my mother? She felt anger at herself and a tinge of admiration. As they embraced, the robot cat beeped, reminding them they didn't have a lot of time. This did not take the edge off Jax's nerves. Spanner, a one-eyed bot that looked more like a toaster with attitude, had a knack for saying the wrong thing at exactly the wrong time. Still, it had just saved their lives. Jax just stared at her, a million thoughts racing through his mind. He could kill her now. What would happen? Would she just die? Or would this trigger something else? What was the real play here? If we work together, he said, his voice low and steady, we can trick them. He let her go as she began to regain her composure. How does that help us? Her eyes were cold. Jax had to think of a way to save them both. Or to be used. What is the end play for you? Asked Jax. You going to be hunted, no? I see people more and more are looking for a good vet or tech since it's the only way to survive these days. I can't tell you everything. For our sake. Xylo turned to Jax with those piercing eyes once again. You going to be a wanted man again if we do this? Do you wish for that to continue? I was in hell before you got here. Jax said, his voice raspy and gruff. I'm already in hell, but if this lets me pay back someone I owe from a long-ago debt, I'm all in. Do you think I can actually trust you? He stared, waiting for the response. It was all too much. All at once. And way too fast for what he needed. He was going to trust Xylo with a plan that he was not expecting. But as he stared into her eyes, he realized he'd come too far to turn back. I am not lying, Jax. What will we do when they contact me, and what will happen? She said, the worry now obvious and not something being hidden. She wanted to help and not be used. She was now showing compassion, and that was more than anything. I need a comm line down. Not connected to the board. Spanner will hook you up with whatever is required. Second, we have to change everything that they think they know. Jax paced as he thought about it, his brain working faster than ever before. I have no plan, he muttered. But if no one is required, we'll take care of it now. Xylo stared at Jax for a long time, searching his face for any sign of deception. She didn't want to believe him, but she had to, because if she didn't, they'd both be dead. At least if it was true what her mother told her. Trust is a luxury we can't afford, she said, her voice a low growl. But we'll do what we can. She hesitated for a moment, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. I never thought it would come to this. Welcome to my world. I'll show you the good part if we survive. Jax deadpanned. Xylo let out a small chuckle. Jax can see a burden being lifted. If even for a little. They had made a dangerous pact, their alliance built on shifting sands of desperation and uncertainty. But they needed each other to make it. Behind them, Spanner whirred, almost as if encouraging them to not screw it up. What happened next was not going to be anything the universe was expecting. Jax had a plan. And he was going to sell every last piece of it. The air in the makeshift comms room crackled with static and the hum of stolen power. It was a far cry from the elegant systems of the Kryllian warships Xylo had known, but she found a certain crude efficiency in the hacked-together setup. It was gritty, functional, and most importantly, untraceable by anyone she knew. Rivet-attached wires everywhere, and it was a marvel that any of them understood how any of it worked. Jax trusted the robotic cat in this much more than any other technician, who seemed to enjoy getting drunker each day. Xylo crouched before the auxiliary terminal, her fingers a blur as she danced across the makeshift keyboard. The ancient Varelian system sputtered to life, bathing her crimson face in a sickly green glow. Lines of code scrolled across the screen in a language that would have been gibberish to anyone but a trained Kryllian codebreaker. She needed a specific protocol to find it all. Jax leaned over her shoulder, squinting at the arcane symbols. You know what you're doing, right? Because if this blows up in our faces, I'm holding you personally responsible. Xylo's eyes didn't leave the screen, but a faint smile touched her lips. Trust me, human. I'm fluent in chaos. Her fingers moved with increasing speed, bypassing firewalls and navigating complex encryption protocols. Fragments of data began to coalesce, forming a disturbing picture. Classified files, organizational charts with redacted names, grainy holos of shadowy figures meeting in secret locations. Each piece of information confirmed her growing suspicions. The Kryllian Directorate was involved in something far more sinister than simple planetary conquest. There, Jax, Xylo said. As the truth started to come forward, the truth came to light. Names, planets, secret information appeared on the screens. Connections to the corporations that controlled the Outer Rim, whispers of a project known as Black Ink, a terrifying program involving genetic manipulation and psionic augmentation. Each piece was a puzzle of terror. A way to make the war never end. Aliana was against the war. Jax, the information I was led to believe, had been faked for decades, Lyra said with a new sense of understanding, but it came with a cost. Jax's blood ran cold as he saw her face light up. It was a face he had seen before back then. Back when he wanted to give her the world. The memory sent a shiver down his spine. It wasn't just war. If they took control of those memories, then nothing would exist. He ran his hand through his hair and was lost. Show me, he commanded. The organizational charts became more transparent. The players had hidden themselves well, their influence masked by layers of corporate bureaucracy and political maneuvering. But Xylo was peeling back the layers, revealing the network of power and control that extended its tendrils across the entire galaxy. "There is some code here too," she whispered. "I was expecting it to be so well hidden that I wouldn't recognize it. There is a bigger power at play. Look at this power structure. See the center," she said, pointing. "Everything flows up to them, but if you notice, their hands are dirty. The more and more money they make, the more it comes back to one goal: to find the last one." "The last one, what's that mean?" "You need to understand before all of this who the target is," Xylo said. "That can take some time, but the reward is that you finally learn the truth." A jolt ran through Jax's heart. That phrase, that haunting sense of dread, a piece of the last that he was trying to bury. That was all the past. He knew he'd have to trust her with this. He locked her eyes. "All right. Let's see what you got." He let out a breath. One more day until he died. "This has to be convincing," Xylo said, her voice low and measured, cutting through Jax's thoughts like a laser through plasteel. "They won't accept a sloppy cover-up." Jax rubbed his temples, fighting against the throbbing headache that was building behind his eyes. "I know that. I wasn't planning on phoning it in." He got up and looked at himself in the cracked mirror. That was him 15 years ago, when he was in the army. It was him when he thought things would be great and things were on the up. Now it was dust. Just dust. "The report, where have we been in these months?" Xylo didn't know. She was here. She didn't even know how to properly say what it did. Jax continued. "I had been doing research on the Kryllian power source in the Sector 7. He was getting tired. Tired of war. And I could just let the world burn, as someone once told him. He walked around to grab more cables. Power was going to be their friend. The problem is, what should happen? What about I upload to them that the ship blew up?" Xylo, as if by cue, laughed. "No one knows who I am, so I am just an asset to be used or killed. Your death has to have more than that." A brief flash of a memory. A man with a smiling face. He felt nothing now. But he wasn't as good as Jax at being a man. A series of fast-paced moments took his vision as a vision of him dying, bleeding, on his knees. He shook and focused to Lyra. "This was the plan, right? It's got to be convincing." He then muttered. "Right, to make my report it, and to show that I tried my best is all. It needs to show that someone just came and overcame me." Xylo didn't answer at Jax. Something deep-rooted in Jax was making her go up her walls. It was her core and nature to protect from what she knew was to help another. But something held her back. "Do you think you are going to kill me?" Jax asked with a smirk, pulling his hands up. Xylo walked over to Jax and grabbed him. His heart rate jumped more than when they ran through the outpost. She just whispered right into his ear. "Maybe," she said. "But not today. But in the end, who knows? I am, after all, just going to do a job." She then stood up and went back to her station to prepare her weapons and look for more secrets. Secrets that just didn't need to be in the hands of anyone. He had her now. She was going to be killed and he was going to just let it happen. But he needed to change. "There is more than meets the eye," Jax said, grabbing the code to start preparing his final message. "It is going to be hard and require a few big things from both of us." "What do you mean?" Lyra said, looking at Jax, whose face looked like he had seen more than a few days. The life and vitality was draining from his skin. "To do this will to set this all forward. I'm going to have to change some things I was going to do. What the end of a person is, I must say. It is something worth fighting for." "What are you on, man?" she said. "I'm not so sure anymore," Jax said, to which he meant to look at her, but he just found the ground. Close-ups showed Jax and Lyra planning out the details. In order to fool Lyra's people, they needed this to be brutal and as brutal as possible. The camera showed the ticking clock to build the tension, echoing throughout the room. Every second felt like a physical weight pressing down on Jax's chest. "Remember," Xylo said, her voice a low murmur, her crimson fingers adjusting his battered armor. "Minimal damage. I need it to look convincing, not like you were vaporized. And try to sound surprised when you find me," Jax said, trying to inject a bit of levity into the grim proceedings. "It sells better that way." They are standing in the bay of Lyra's ship, ready to set it all off. Jax knows that his survival depends on a red alien that hates him. Xylo grabbed Jax and locked his arms with his. It was the only time she was touch him. She had had her guard down. Her emotions were there. She had a face to show him. Jax looked into the eyes that he might never see again. He had made his peace with a lot over the years. Now he was going to make peace with all he's gone through. "This might kill me if they know," said Xylo. "The time had come." "I want you to say everything you've ever wanted to tell me," said Jax to Lyra. "It's corny. But so is this time in his life. He can't expect anything less than full corn." Lyra thought of her people. All she lost. All the pain she could never forget. The one truth. All of it rested on this. The one truth that she had heard. Xylo took Jax's face into her head and said these words. "I am truly sorry, Jax," she said. "You don't need to say that," said Jax. "I do." She grabbed his face. "For the war. For all of it. I will do this for you." Then, she left to pull the switch. Now it was just Jax. On his own. His hand hit the button to unlock the door, and then it was all over to the winds. The door hissed open, sealing his fate. He stepped into the escape pod, a cramped metal cocoon that offered little comfort. He could not look again at Lyra as if he did. He did not know if he could do what needed to get done. The alarms on the ship started blare. Red lights ticked on. They began to flash as Lyra did what she needed to do. He set the pod to launch, closed his eyes, and waited. The pod shot out into the void, a small metal seed cast adrift in a cosmic ocean. A sudden lurch, and then the escape pod was falling back through. Blast. He heard a deafening roar, a blinding flash of light, and then, nothing. The ship had overloaded everything. When Jax came to, he was floating, disoriented. What he'd thought would be fire was ice. His head throbbed, the air was thin, and his vision was blurred. Looking out a broken screen was all he needed to see. His home and new friend were all in flames. They trusted him. But what was he to trust back? It was happening. The universe was going to be at him. He stumbled to the comm and was thankful that it was just not working. His hand hit the button to get in touch. The comm was open. Now the play was on. A wave from the wind hit his face. The screen flickered and the sound clicked on. He sat down looking as he wanted to look defeated. He saw the face of the man in the video. "So Jax, what did you bring back?" There was a long pause. "Nothing, and there is something you won't be finding here any time soon." He coughed as he just sat. "Xylo is dead. Just another body to add to the ranks." The comm went silent. They think they got what they wanted, but now it was all up to him. The escape pod shook as it entered the atmosphere. He did not say anything to the camera, knowing he wouldn't say anything with it all in this case. Time to get to the place they need to go next. A small signal beeped indicating that their path was secure. Within a few it would crash, but they couldn't save everyone. But they can do what they do to move forward. "We have to go," Jax said out loud. "There is too much more to do." Xylo had appeared to be very shocked by her former friend turning against her, even as she had known that their day would come. But nothing to the pain inside was worse than how it could hurt more than anything. Jax and Lyra looked at each other, and then were thrown around again as another explosion came nearby. To them, all they could feel was smoke. The alarms are going off, and their hearts are all that's left. "Trust," said Lyra as she grabbed Jax and took hold to save him. The ship then crashed and everything was white. What was next?